What's up, guys? It's Friday, and this is the first episode of Fast Film Friday, our new series that we're doing on Fridays. Today, we're touching on 6 pro tips for better car photography. So let's get into it. All right, so I think there's about 3 levels of car photography or photography. You've got a base level where you pull out your phone and get a shot of your favorite car or a car at an auto show with your phone. You can't discount phones these days. They can take some pretty amazing shots, but we're not talking about that. We're talking another level up from that. So up from that, you have DSLR or mirrorless cameras. And these are cameras that you can set the settings manually on so you can get the perfect setting for this shot. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Of course, there's another level above that where if you've got the studio lights, you got a whole setup, you have time to position the car, light the car, shoot the car, and then spend a few hours in Photoshop, you can get a professional shot. We're not talking about that. That's a little bit too complicated and a little bit too involved for this. But there are some great YouTubers that do talk about that kind of stuff, that do shoot photography like that for a job. One of my favorite guys on YouTube is named Moe. I'll link his channel down in the description. He does some awesome car photography stuff. But in this video, we're going to stick with the level 2, just having a good camera and taking some good shots. So let's get into the tips. All right, tip 1 is all about framing your subject. How you frame your subject can make a huge difference in the way that your image turns out. So you're basically looking at where your car is positioned in the frame and what it's doing, what it's saying about the car. Are you positioning it at dead center? Are you putting it off to the side? If it's off to the side, is it looking out of the frame or is it looking into the frame? These kind of things are basic photography rules, but they make a huge difference in the end result. So one of the big things that is preached by most photographers is the rule of thirds. So when you look at your camera and you got the grid lines going up and down the camera, on those intersecting points is where you want your focus, where you want your subject, and that's going to give you kind of the best composition for your photos. The horizon line on one of those lines and your subject into one of those corners. While you're looking at your frame, this is a great time to look at what else is in your frame, not just the car. So the car is very important, but you want to look at what's behind the car. Do you have telephone poles sticking up through the car? Do you have trash on the ground around the car? I can't tell you how many times I've went out and shot a car, not even thinking, and then later on in post I have to go edit out some trash that's laying beside the car because it just looks ugly and makes it look very unprofessional. So while you're framing your car, this is a great time to take a look around the car and make sure that you have a clean slate. Tip 2 is camera settings. Now there's a bunch we can touch on with camera settings, and I'm not going to do a deep dive into what the best settings are. So you definitely need to understand ISO. The higher the ISO you have, the more grainy your image is going to be. The lower that you have that, the more clear and sharp your image can be. You need to understand your shutter speed and your f-stop on your camera. So if you're taking night photography, you might want high shutter speeds, or you might want low shutter speeds. If you're doing sports, you might want really low shutter speed. If you're doing like a quick drive-by, you might want a kind of mid-range shutter speed to try to get that car sharp but the background blurry. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with your different settings of your camera, and you just need to play with those, but get comfortable manually tweaking your camera settings. And you definitely don't need the best camera in the world, but cameras that you can tweak these settings on will help get you a better image. So tip 3, we're talking about the lens of the camera. What's the best lens? Now you can get some really great shots with the kit lens that comes with your camera. Most of the cameras I've owned, I've only used the kit lens. It works perfectly well, but a better lens is going to give you a lot more flexibility. It's going to give you a sharper image. Usually they're faster lenses, so you can make the f-stop lower, you can get a more blurry background, you can distinguish the background from your subject and really make your cars pop out. So there's a lot of advantages to having a better lens. But you also want to look at the focal length of your lens. So if you're at a car show and you've got a bunch of cars that are really tightly parked together and you want to get really good shots of just one car, a nice wide angle focal length, something around a 14 millimeter, 10 to 18 millimeter is a good wide angle, but I like using a 14 millimeter lens for something like that. But really, to render the best result, I recommend a longer focal length, something like 75 to 125. I really like using a 75 millimeter lens. You get further back away from the car. This is going to do a couple of things for you. For one, you're not going to be in the reflection of the car. One of the hardest things to do with taking photos of cars is keeping yourself out of the reflection of the car. But with a long focal length lens, you can get far back away from the car and you're not going to be in that reflection. It's also going to keep your shadow from being in the photo as well. It's also going to give you a nice frame for your image, and it's going to help with that blurring the background and distinguishing your vehicle from the background and really making it pop. Tip number 4, we're talking about lighting. Now, we already discussed we're not talking about studio lighting here, but we're talking about natural light. Get your car out of the garages, get your car out of the shade, get it into some natural light. So you don't want the sun to be like right behind your car, because that's either going to blow out the sky to get the car in good exposure, or you're going to have a really dark car. Now, if you're going for that kind of look, that can be okay. But to get a really good image, you want the sun to be coming at an angle or from behind you. And again, this can introduce things like shadows into your photo. But if you've got a long focal length lens, it's going to help reduce your shadow getting into your images. So just things to think about, but always look at where the light's coming from and how you have your vehicle positioned. All right, tip number 5, we're talking about shooting in RAW and editing. So if you got a DSLR or mirrorless camera, chances are you have a RAW format you can shoot in. This is going to be better than shooting in a JPEG format, because JPEG compresses all your information and makes it harder to edit. Now, I'm not talking about spending hours in Photoshop and tweaking your image, but being able to throw it into some software and adjust some of your highlights, some of your exposure values, and bringing down your blacks, bringing up your saturation. All these things can really tweak an image and make it so much better of an end result. All right, and your last one, tip number 6, is just keep getting out there and shooting, trying different things, trying different angles, shooting at different times of the day, shooting again from different angles with different lenses at different focal lengths. Take a look at what other people are shooting. Ask questions if you can of photographers and ask them what kind of lens they were using, what focal length they were using, what settings they might have been using. But just get out of your comfort zone, do something a little bit different, and see what you can get. And you'll be surprised. The more you do it, obviously, the better that you're going to get, the more that you're going to know what you're doing, and you can replicate things more and more. And it becomes more fun. So definitely just get out there and do it over and over, and just try different things and have fun. All right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. This was the first Fast Film Friday episode that we're doing. Not all of them are going to be this long. Hopefully they're not going to be this long, but I did want to get this one out first. I wanted this to be one of the first subjects to be out there, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you have any other questions or suggestions for Fast Film Friday episodes. And as always, thanks for watching.